Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Sharon Stevens. A couple of years ago, the 9 Network produced a documentary called Gentlemen of Vision about a North St. Louis County STEP team that helps underserved young men. The U.S. State Department's Cultural Affairs Bureau selected the film for its American Film Showcase that offers a view of American society and culture. It was selected by the embassy in Cartagena, Colombia. The co-directors of the film, Jim Kircher of the 9 Network and Frank Popper, an independent producer, along with Marlon Wharton, Gentlemen of Vision's coach, went to Colombia last month as part of a cultural exchange. A special Living St. Louis episode about the trip airs tonight at 8 on 9 PBS. Jim Kircher, Frank Popper, and Marlon Wharton, I'm sorry, Marlon, forgive me.
You're fine.
Are all back from Colombia, and they join me in the studio now. So glad to have you here. We've all met before. Jim Kircher and I used to work together, so enjoying a kind of old home week. We actually have audio of the official announcement that Gentlemen of Vision has chosen to go to Colombia, was chosen. Let's listen to that right now.
For the 2019 American Film Showcase program here in Colombia, the U.S. Embassy chose Gentlemen of Vision for its central message, which is that it's not all about winning competitions. It's about working together and supporting each other as a team and understanding what it means to be successful through hard work and determination. This message is universal. The story of Marlon Wharton and the STEP team he leads is not only inspirational, it also resonates with audiences here in Colombia, where 41% of the population is under the age of 24, and unemployment and high school dropout rates are significant challenges.
Well, first of all, gentlemen, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice. Let's talk a little bit about what it meant to have that particular honor.
Well, I'll have to say, first of all, as I've said, we made this, Frank and I made the film, and of course Marlon's a big part of it because he's the coach of the team. We made it about our own community. We knew that it would perhaps have some importance and interest nationally because of, especially surrounding the events after Ferguson, and there was interest, and it ran on PBS World to a national audience. But this was just a huge surprise that this might be something that would interest and resonate with especially young people in Colombia. There's about maybe 10% Afro-Colombian descendants of slaves, a minority community in Colombia, and boy, did we get a reaction from some of those folks.
Frank, what do you think?
Yeah, I was going to just say that I've been on the festival circuit before, but this is really special when you're asked by somebody. Well, we were at AFI Docs in D.C. a couple of years ago, and somebody walked up to me and said, "I'm with the State Department. Would you be interested in being a part of this program?" And when he described it to me, I thought, this is what a great opportunity. It's by far the best opportunity that I think that I've ever had personally, to be able to represent your country in another country and share experiences. So I put it at the top.
Marlon, let's talk a little bit about the students who were involved in the program. How many are we talking about? Where do they come from?
Okay, so originally the program started, it was mostly for Riverview Garden students, but we early in the inception of the program made it a nonprofit. So we have guys from all over the North County area, St. Louis City. Anybody who can make it to our program, we'll meet them halfway. So we're open to everybody. Right now, we currently have 63 guys in the program.
How many kids would you say you've helped?
Over 450 students have been through our program.
Oh my goodness, that's a lot.
I have to say that, you brought up a good point, Sharon. It's really the helping part of this. When we first started on the documentary, we said, well, this isn't going to be about a history of stepping. It's not going to be about how Marlon makes these guys into champions, and they are. That's another amazing story. It's really about what he does for them in preparing them not just for step competitions, but getting them to graduate and preparing them to face life, because they're going to face some of the same difficulties as young adults as they have in high school. And I think that's one of the things that, again, we heard from the audiences in Colombia, in Cartagena, in another town, Palenque, and in the island of San Andres. They saw their own story in this, and that's what really kind of surprised us.
Okay. Well, if you are unfamiliar with what STEP is, we can at least show you what it sounds like. Now, this is just a short clip from a Gentleman of Vision performance. Listen.
G-O-B, let's introduce ourselves.
Well, first of all, let me say that stepping is familiar in a number of communities, and fraternities and sororities often include stepping as part of their routine. But Marlon, tell me a little bit about why you thought this would be a good way to go to capture the attention of these young men.
Okay, I'm a high school counselor by trade, so working in that capacity, I looked around and realized that a lot of these young men specifically didn't have a club or organization or sport that they were interested in. So a lot of guys had idle time or they weren't involved. And I felt that, I am a part of a fraternity, and I joined in college, and I knew that STEP was critical as far as conditioning, discipline, brotherhood, leadership, and all that good thing. And so I felt like that might resonate well with our high school students, but in my wildest imagination, I didn't think that they would catch on to where we have this many young men interested to be a part of our program.
Which fraternity was that?
Alpha Phi, Alpha Fraternity Incorporated.
Okay.
Yes, I should have mentioned that. Yes.
And we see, youngsters around the country have incorporated that. Maybe not quite the same way that you've done it at Riverview Gardens, but I see it everywhere. They're middle schoolers,
Yes.
And it's really something to watch.
That's an excellent point, because it was originally, again, fraternities and sororities, and then the high schoolers got involved, and now it's elementary, middle, is everybody. And that's a good thing, because you have dance teams and now you have step teams. Another layer of things for young people to participate in. And it's good for conditioning and just staying focused and staying in something positive.
Okay. Frank and Jim, give me an idea of what you were thinking about when you were, visually, when you're putting this together. You got a group of young men who are doing these very intricate steps, and they're moving, and how do you keep up with that? I mean, were you thinking in your head, oh, this is going to be a little more difficult than I thought, or piece of cake?
Well, since Frank shot the entire film for the most part, I'll let him discuss that.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of getting up there in years, and one thing I've learned is if you want to feel young, you hang around young people. But physically, it was a physically demanding thing. The first time I got a chance to actually join them at competition, a road show to Dallas, Marlon had warned me not to get stuck in the no sleep zone. Which is where the kids
on the bus on the bus where we travel.
But when I first first met the team working on another project, and I thought that there were interesting elements. I didn't know what STEP was at the time. I knew that I'd heard that they were like the winningest team in the country, and yet they were in a failed school district, so I thought it had all the elements of a good story.
Okay. Jim, did you go to Colombia with the intention of putting together the Living St. Louis episode that airs tonight?
No, in fact, one of the things they tell you, and Frank and I went to an orientation, the program, while it's a State Department program, is run by University of Southern Cal and their film school. And they told us this is not a vacation trip. It's not a work trip for you, it's a work trip for us. And our job was to do a number of filmmaking workshops, screenings, and panels. And they were going to keep us very busy, and they did, although we did have enough time to eat nicely and explore some things in Colombia. But I think in part because of telephone phone technology, you can get awfully good video, not so good audio, but pretty good video. So Frank shot a lot of stuff during that trip, and so almost all of the stuff that's in the Living St. Louis special tonight at 8 o'clock was shot on Frank's phone. And we were able to put it together. And then, of course, I sat down with Frank and Marlon to talk about what we brought back from this trip. I mean, what we brought there and then what we brought back. So, we did it thinking that we might be able to do something. And it was an incredible trip. And I think it's certainly worth sharing because, the idea is that we have this St. Louis story and we shared it with this group of folks in a country that I knew very little about. And boy, the connections we made were almost immediate. And I think that's the value of the State Department program, is making these sorts of connections that makes us less alien to each other.
Okay. Marlon, let me get back to you. What are some of the issues that the young people you're working with are dealing with?
Okay, a lot of the young people, transportation, getting to and from different places, resources, jobs is one of the main things. A lot of the young people want to work, but there's a lack of employment opportunities in their communities. A lot of them, sometimes academically they didn't get off to the best start, so just trying to get their footing academically. So those are some of the issues that they're having at school.
And this helps them because?
This helps them because that idle time is now you're busy, now you're traveling, now you're familiar with colleges because every time we travel, we do college visits. You're familiar with leadership because they have leadership training that they have to do. And they're mentored individually. We have several coaches that all sit down with these guys, talk to them, mentor them. We have several counselors on staff, so if they need counseling, we provide that. So we just... it's a holistic program that can address all the needs of young men.
So the stepping is quite interesting and fun to look at and exciting, but your program is broader than that.
Yes, it's part of that. It's really the purpose is one of the scenes in the documentary is of me putting the trophies in a closet in the basement, and it was one of the favorite scenes when we were in Cartagena, Colombia. They were like, "Why would you put the trophies in the basement?" And one of the other coaches explains that the trophies are really those guys that are out there, the doctors, the lawyers, the police officers that have been through the ranks of our program who are out there helping to change lives right now.
Okay. I am talking with Marlon Wharton, coach of Gentlemen of Vision, Jim Kircher of the 9 Network, and Frank Popper, an independent producer. How similar or different would you say step dancing is to the dance traditions that they had in Colombia?
I think there is a link. I'm not the expert on the link, but I saw some similarities. And in Palenque, we met the leader of, I guess they had a drum line, a drum troupe. And a lot of those young people were kind of drawn to the step, and they were able to show us some of the African dance that they know. So I'm sure there's a link, but it was just magical to see them gravitate to step, and their interest was there. It was piqued by us being there in the documentary.
Yeah, I've got to give you a little background. Palenque was really, I think, the highlight of the trip for us. It's a village of about 3,500 people, but it was founded 400 years ago by escaped slaves. Cartagena was a big slave port. And it was founded by escaped slaves. The Spanish could never defeat them, so they finally said, what the heck, you're a free city. It's the first free city in the Americas. And they have a very, very strong tie to their African traditions because of their isolation and because of the fact that they were founded by escaped slaves. So people from the world over go there to listen to their music. They have their own Creole language that's partly African-based. They have the drums, they have the music, the dance is incredible. So when we brought, and they watched what Marlon does, they totally got it. They may have never seen stepping like this before. They totally understood what Marlon was doing with the kids in St. Louis because they do the same thing with kids in Palenque, and they brought up the same issues: education, jobs, opportunity,
Yes.
keeping kids out of trouble.
Yes.
That's what they do. So Marlon was like, he was a rock star there.
Now, do you probably have a memorable story, each of you? Marlon, what about cashews? Anything?
Oh, it was so many. It was just to see after we showed the documentary, to see the response. I mean, we had questions. We had to stop the questions because they just really wanted more. They wanted us to do a part two. They were asking, "What about a part two to Gentlemen of Vision?" And they wanted to know what those guys were doing. So just to share with them and for them to really understand this movie all the way across the world was like powerful to me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think for me, we all remember Palenque, I think, and we have some meals and things like that to remember. But I think one of the jobs that Frank and I had was to encourage young people at these workshops to tell their own stories about their own country and their own communities, and we saw some incredible work, some film clips that people were working on, and what I found was, in much the same way as in St. Louis, they have a lot of pride in their country and their culture. So it was just so rewarding to see what they were doing and to encourage them to tell stories about their own communities.
The thing that really stood out for me was that the audiences appreciated this documentary unlike anything that I've ever worked on before. I have a whole new respect for the program that Marlon's created by seeing the film that Jim and I worked on through the eyes of this audience who loved Marlon with an intensity that I've never seen before. And the film, it resonated with them on a very personal level, and it was very rewarding.
I think they liked also seeing a couple of white guys and a black guy working together and being part of a team. I think that was part of how we represented this community. Mm-hmm. They didn't say that, but I think I got that impression.
Do you think that that's how they think the United States is everywhere, every day?
Well, what we heard was they think the United States is, everybody is rich, they have big houses, they have big cars, and so seeing the stories that we told about our own community, that really surprised them. They didn't realize that we were dealing in St. Louis with many of the same issues that they're dealing in their own country.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And people would ask about Cashew?
Yes.
Cashew, who is he?
He was one of the characters.
No, you go for it.
He was one of the characters who was mentored since 8th grade year. We had a former police officer as a coach, and actually he had a half day at school and hung with the wrong people, made a bad decision to go and break into somebody's house and steal a TV. And his own coach was the officer that was called to deal with that situation, and he had to arrest him. And the documentary was able to tell that story and to the end. And he was actually able to, he was put out of the program, but he came back and he made it right, and he apologized to everybody involved, and now he's doing good things for himself. He's employed with Home Depot, and he travels, and he's doing a lot of good things.
Nothing like a second chance, is there?
Yes, a good second chance.
Okay. We want to thank you all very much. Again, my guests have been Marlon Morton, coach of Gentlemen of Vision, a step team in North St. Louis County. He's also a counselor. We didn't say that at Riverview Gardens High School.
Counselor at Riverview Gardens High School, which is an excellent place to work.
Jim Kircher, Senior Director of Content for the 9 Network and co-director of Gentlemen of Vision, and Frank Popper, an independent producer and co-director of Gentlemen of Vision. Gentlemen, thank you very, very much. We appreciate it. St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.
The Gateway brings you the day's news from the St. Louis region and across Missouri. It also includes stories from the Illinois side of the river and our Metro East reporter, Will Bauer.
In Alton, in Belleville, in East St. Louis, in Edwardsville, in Cahokia Heights, at Scott Air Force Base, I'm Will Bauer. St. Louis Public Radio.
Listen to reports from Will and all of our journalists weekdays on The Gateway, on the STLPR app, and wherever you get podcasts.